ago, my Israeli friend Shiri was on her Tiyul Hagadol, her big post-army trip around the world. And she was going with her best friend Ma'ayan, who she'd known forever. They'd even served in the army together. They'd mapped out the classic Israeli Tiyul, from Southeast Asia to New Zealand to the Israeli Mecca of Machu Picchu. And everything, they'd been gone for months, everything was going great. But somewhere between Machu Picchu and the glaciers of Chile, a 14-hour bus ride away, things started to go a little bit sour. And this may be an experience you guys have had traveling with friends or former friends and loved ones. That does tend to happen sometimes. And things started to get really bad between them. And I was getting these frantic emails about Mayan and how obviously stupid she was. And then what they decided to do, after a few tense, screamed conversations, is Shiri and Ma'ayan decided that they were going to have some time apart. Time for some time apart. They were still going to stay in the hostel at night like they planned. They were in La Paz when they made this heroic decision. They were going to split, though, during the daytime and kind of do their own thing, get maybe more than 5 feet of space between them for the first time in several months. And so I remember Shiri emailed me that morning, and she was so excited to have this day free of Ma'ayan and all of her antics. And then that night I got a really funny email, because Shiri had gone out on her day of fun in La Paz, full of all these activities she'd planned that were going to be great. And she found that they felt hollow, and they felt empty, and it was not fun. And all she was doing was collecting a list in her mind of the stories and experiences that, to her own surprise, she couldn't wait to tell Ma'ayan back at the hostel that night. So this seemed like a very clearly logical decision, but actually it turned out that after being a we together for so long, to be an I was a little bit more complicated than she thought. There was a lot more of a dance to it than they'd anticipated. And I think that this dance is lurking beneath the surface of our entire book of Deuteronomy, as the Israelites prepare to cross into the land of Israel and to take a community that's existed in one very specific way and to reconstitute it in a very different way once they've entered the land. And I think that this tension that Shiri and Ma'ayan show us of the Anachnu and the Ani is very present in this week's Parsha, in Ki Tavo, and specifically in the Bikurim blessing and the recitation and the whole ritual that Abby just read for us. So Bikurim is the first fruits. So when we're finally in the land, and I think that bringing the first fruits, it's not just being in the land, it's not just that we got there. It's that we're doing something with it. We're transforming that land. We have gotten our hands dirty, we've sown, we've reaped, we've toiled with the sweat of our brow. And now we have something to show for it. Literal fruits of our labor. And so we're commanded to give an offering, to take it to the priest down at the temple. And you take it in your basket. So when I'm talking about it, I'll do a little basket move there. So you take it in your basket. And here's where the Torah gets kind of unusual, in that the Torah, as we know, likes to paint in really broad strokes often. It gives you an idea of what's going to happen. And then the rabbis come in and they fill it all in, start to finish, exactly what that looks like, what you say, which way you're facing. But not in this Bikurim recitation. In this recitation, when you bring your first fruits, you are given 6 specific sentences that you must tell the priest when you're dropping them off. And these sentences, so it starts with the famed Seder line, Arami Oved Avi. My father was a wandering Aramaean, and then it tells a very brief story of the Exodus. He went down to Egypt. It was good there until it wasn't anymore. Right? The Egyptians enslaved us. It was terrible. We cried out to God, and God heard. God heard us, and God sprung into action. God brought us out of there with that mighty hand, that outstretched arm, that show of signs and wonders. And God brought us into the land of Israel. And much in the typical style of the Torah, these 6 sentences are they're declarative, they're very pared down, they're very bare. Except when you read them, they are jam-packed with transformation. They are bursting with becoming. It is a recitation of becoming and acknowledging what one once was and what one will be. So besides the obvious narrative arc of going from being slaves to being free, additionally, in just these few sentences, the Israelites go from being small to being large, They go from being foreigners to being native. They go from being without God to being in a very committed and very dependent relationship with God. And here's where Shiri and Ma'ayan come in. Because also, in this story, it's all in the anachnu. It's all about us. Really, technically, it's all in the otanu. Because we're an object, also mostly, in our own story. It goes from being in the anachnu, in this otanu voice, and then suddenly, when you are dropping off your fruits at the priest, it is all about me. There's this very distinct flip into the singular. So we've said, we did this, we did that, and suddenly it's Ve'ata hine heveti, and now behold, I have brought the choicest of my first fruits, were grown from the land, asher natata li Adonai, that God gave to me. So I think in that, there might be some pride and some freedom, like Shiri and Ma'ayan expected that they would get, but there's definitely a change, and we all know that with change comes loss. And I feel that there's a sense of loss in this flip from the anachnu to the ani. And I don't just feel it, I think that the Torah supports it then in the subsequent verses. Because what happens next is God says, okay, you brought your thing, you said your thing, you leave your basket, you go, and then visamachta, and you shall be happy, you shall rejoice. And so also at first blush, I was like, first fruits, this must be the most amazing moment of culmination, of fulfillment, of a divine promise, of something preordained, of having transformed, having entered. But the Torah had to tell us to be happy. Seems like there's some corrective element there, some suspicion that maybe people will not be feeling like they should. Moreover, it's not just visamachta, you, great work. It's visamachta alongside the Levite and the stranger in your midst. So in this moment, in this very sharp transition from anachnu to ani, we find the Torah writing community back into the piece that is singular. It says, yeah, you should be happy, but you got to have everyone with you to be happy. And moreover, the way they do it, it's across the strata of society. The Levite, the Ger, those are kind of two, almost in opposition. So you need to be celebrating alongside people who largely look like you, think like you, act like you, as well as alongside people who do not think like you, do not look like you, and do not act like you. Your fortunes are all bound together. The Torah writes that back in, even when it's talking to you. It's not just you at all. And in this Bikurim ritual, I see us. I see us here at the Hebrew Union College. I see us in transformation. We came here to be transformed from one thing to another. We're in the process of an overwhelming, incredible, all-encompassing, long transformation. Yet when we enter that promised land, when we have reached our culmination, graduation, ordination, whatever Asian is going on in your life, suddenly in our promised land, we are remarkably and profoundly alone in many ways. We've gone from a process that's been anachnu for so long, from that bonding in the year in Israel, to your core curriculum, to your elective, to then our ordination group, which I'm starting to live now. But then as we get closer to that, it turns into being all about my career, my path, my journey. Which I think is totally natural. That's where I am too. But again, it's worth noticing, it's worth pointing out how this we, this strongly forged we, so quickly becomes an I. A we that we might not have thought that we wanted, that we might find ourselves desperately missing, like Shiri in La Paz. It's hard out there, especially that first year. I've heard now second hand, third hand, fourth hand, right? Getting used to a new place, a new lifestyle. Might be you, might be in a family unit, but renegotiating almost everything that your life consisted of here. Not as a we, as an I. And in pastoral counseling class, second year, we read an article by a retired rabbi named Jack Bloom that really stuck with me. Jack Bloom said that the rabbinate, so this part is most specifically to the rabbinate, but I think relevant to the other professional Jews in the room. The rabbinate can be a very isolating career, but also that he thinks rabbis are unique, and that the rabbis he knows, their best friends are their buddies from seminary, from 15, 20, 30 years ago. That's been percolating in my mind ever since. Because Jack Bloom told me, Rabbi Jack Bloom told me, we are all we've got. We are all we've got. We are the anachnu. Look around the room. You can extend to the other campuses too. Maybe. But for the most part, we are all we've got. This is the anachnu that's going to support you when you're feeling so painfully ani out in the field. This is who you're going to be calling late at night, early in the morning, from a cramped lunch hour. This is the we. And what I want to suggest, as these days of Elul begin to wane, you probably noticed, I want to suggest we think about Teshuvah. And I want us to think about Teshuvah right here in this building, in this anachnu, in this community. Who have I wronged? Who have I misunderstood? Who have you wronged? And I'm totally talking to myself. I've had conflict in these hallowed halls, and I've held on to it. I've cultivated it. I've poured an incredible amount of energy into growing it and dragging it behind me wherever I go. There are conversations I need to have before the new year comes in. Might not want to, but I need to. Because I know that preparing to go out and be an ani, I want the biggest, strongest anachnu I can possibly have from this community. And our Parsha tells us, V'samachta, you should be happy, but you can't do it alone. You cannot do it alone. You have to do it with the Levite, and with the stranger, and with the Abby, and the Dan, with the Laura, with the Rob, with the Michael, with the Eric, as they reap the fruits of their labor as well. So as Elul draws to a close, I want to encourage us to draw closer together as an anachnu, as we continue down this road of transformation for both now and 35 years from now, both together and apart. So I'm Tovim.